Welcome back to the Mindfully Curious podcast. My name is Steph and I host this space. The purpose of this podcast is to have a container where I can put my curiosity towards exploring the human experience and how creativity truly is a rebellious ally to all of us journeymen and journey women, aka heroes and heroines of the world. Anyway, if you hear a in the background, that is my dog eating her Kong like a pro. I gave her a Kong so she would be quiet while I record this. And I just realized that no matter what I do, y'all are just going to be able to hear her. So I hope you enjoy that rhythmic Kong remix in the background. And if you're thinking, what the hell is a Kong? It is spelled Kong, and you can Google that and check it out. It's a Kong toy dog. I highly recommend buying your pup one and filling it with goodies. Your dog will thank you. And honestly, so will I, because I think it's cool to share things with your dogs. I love my dogs. The thing I love most about my dogs is watching them and seeing how they react or act just throughout the day. It is a very enlightening experience, especially when they wash their butts. Sorry, I had to bring that up. So again, I can't believe that this is episode 30 something and season 3. 9 months later. If this had been a human child, it would have probably been born by now, because it's been about 9 months. So pretty wild to think about what we've co-created. And to you listening, I love you so much, and I just can't. Honestly, I don't have the words to express my excitement for these next steps in our journey together. I had so much time during the time off, and I used that time to kind of grieve the ideas that were not born into this world and let them go so that I can plant new seeds of ideas and projects to put my energy towards for this second quarter of 2021. And I am so happy that Mindfully Curious, the podcast, even though it's something that does not create any revenue for me, I love doing this so much. Honestly, I would have it no other way. And I'm not saying that I would not make money off of it, but I just love that I get to do whatever I want and say whatever I feel like I need to express. And again, I am just so thankful for you for sharing this with me. And I hope that, well, I guess the intention for the podcast is, yes, for me to explore my curiosities about creativity and the human experience, but also to share them with you. And the reason I want to share them with you and everybody else is because I personally have derived so much value from listening to people's stories. And that may sound ridiculous because everybody's got stories, and everybody is probably willing to tell you them. But unfortunately, we live in this modern post-COVID world, and I think communication is something we are not getting to practice and delight in as much. So, if anything, I hope this work of mine inspires you to be curious about what you're curious about. Be curious about what you love. Be curious about what you want to see more of in the world. Be curious about what do you love so much that it fucking hurts, but in that good way, in that way where you feel like you're expanding. And if you were any happier or more fulfilled, you would explode into the universe in a good way, of course, not like in a weird thriller or slasher movie way. No, 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 no. I'm talking about the good kind of explosion. That was not a good visual. Anywho, today's episode, so excited. It's with my sister, Tiffany Mertens. During this conversation, you're going to hear her talk about her journey and how she was able to alchemize all of her experiences into really stepping into herself and creating the life that she loves. And how she found out that the best way to do that was through the frequency of pleasure. Tiffany is a coach. She is a mentor. She is a fire dancer that has performed in stages all over the world. And she is going to share with us how she went from being a kid who was shy to dance because of something she was told when she was doing gymnastics when she was a child, and how she went from a shy person that wouldn't dance to being this magical worldwide fire dancer. And I don't know if she does fire performances only. She might do non-fire dancing too, but during her latest endeavor, she is doing fire dancing. And I just think that is so freaking dope. During this episode, we will touch on what is the reward after you decide to seek more of what you're curious about, and how movement can help you figure yourself out, how music can create a portal, a sacred space for you to really be able to drop into your body, to put the mind, the judge, on standby, and to let your body and your soul, your real self human being, from the inside to your most primal core, how they can connect and how that can ultimately turn into a super fun, pleasurable experience. And Tiffany is the most magical doula for experiences like that. We will talk about what it's like to attend one of her free flow ecstatic dance ceremonies. We're going to talk about what other types of mentorship she offers and how you can connect with her. All of the information will also be listed under show notes, so please make sure if you want to tap into any of that information, check those out. As always, you know where to find us on the socials, on the internet. You know how to show us some love, and by now I'm sure you hear it from all of your podcasts. please leave a rate and review an Apple podcast. That is the best way to help the podcast grow and help me attract more guests. Also, if you have any recommendations on guests that you may want to hear interviewed or talk to during this podcast, please feel free to DM me on Instagram or leave a voice message, again, through the show notes. I have so many more things that I am excited to share with you, but I will leave those for next week and give you little mini doses of all of my excitement through our conversations each week. I love you. I appreciate you. I honor you. And I am so happy to be here with you. Big love, everyone. Tiffany, welcome. How are you doing?
Oh my gosh, girl, I'm so good. Thank you so much for having me here.
I'm so excited to have you here. So excited because I have learned in our short relationship, I have learned so much about ways that I can really keep pushing past fear in towards loving myself in different ways, in ways that are just going to help me be more loving to myself and therefore others. So for that, I thank you so much. And I am so happy that you're here to share your magic with us.
Yes. Oh, that makes me feel good to hear. That's a lot of the focus of my work, is just to remind people how easy it can be to love ourselves. And it doesn't take much, but once we get to that spot, it's so sweet.
So sweet. I was just reflecting on last week on all the work that went through, and I'm like, wow, it's such a mind fuck that loving yourself really just opens up everything you ever were curious about in like the most pleasurable way that you could have imagined or whatever.
Yeah, pleasure is the frequency. That's something that I learned a couple, maybe like 6 months ago. I had a pussy coach, pleasure coach, and she really brought that in for me on a very fierce level. That's like pleasure is the frequency of abundance, of love, of everything. So as long as you can operate from that place, everything just seems to like manifest and flow so easily, including self-love,
Yes, it's really the place of abundance. But before we get deep into those really good, juicy subjects, I would love if you could share with us a little bit of your story, how you got to be in this magical spot that you've created for yourself. What that did your journey look like? I'm always curious to know how different and yet some of the same patterns kind of like end up showing up through every hero's journey.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so man, I'll try and be cliff notes. A lot of my journey has been focused on identity, which I think is common for everybody. At some point, I reached this spot where I was like, who am I? And for me, that was really rooted in my childhood. I didn't know my biological father. I still don't. Didn't know my biological mother. I knew who she was, but we didn't have a connection at all. And I found that out when I was about 8 years old, and my dad, the guy who raised me, wasn't my biological dad. And it spun me out, and as a kid, I couldn't quite fully understand what that meant, but I'd already had so many issues around like missing my mother. Like, why isn't my mother around? Why didn't she choose me? So many questions. And once I learned that my dad wasn't my biological dad, I was just like, I felt super not chosen. I was like, what is happening? And it was an inner dialogue around not being good enough that like was my whole adolescence, well into my early 20s. Something that I've done a lot of work on now as an adult to really understand my value and my worth. But it's taken this hero's journey, like you said, to really get to this very secure, very stable place of, okay, now I know who the fuck I am. And now I get the opportunity to lean into the things that I want to do and experience and try from a more self-supportive standpoint. So that journey, you know, within that, there was some abusive relationships in my early 20s that really challenged my worth, you know, like had me shattered on the floor. It's like 2 back-to-back really bad relationships that had me just feeling so broken, so tore up. And all I knew was that I just never wanted to feel that way again. I was like, God, I'll do anything. I was like praying for the first time, like, help me. Like, what do I need to do? I just don't ever want to experience this pain again. And to some degree, I knew that there was some self accountability. I played victimhood for quite a while
Me
before I
too.
actually, before I came to just like, okay, I can see the patterns. I can see that I'm choosing them, but why am I choosing them? And that's what really like catapulted my spiritual journey. Um, and it was really through dance. That's like that is my meditation, through dance, through journaling. My best friend and I had a really beautiful gratitude practice that really helped me like start to tap into abundance and just gratitude. And it was like through those practices that I started to build my confidence back up, and I started to seek the things that I was curious about doing, which was performing and mentorship. You know, like I know that I'm not alone in the fact that I was abused. As a kid, I was abused. As an adult, I was abused, but I'm no longer abused because I learned how to, you know, stand up for myself and own my worth and my boundaries and stuff. So now I'm in this beautiful position where I love myself so radically that I get to pursue whatever I want to pursue because I feel so confident in who I am. I know that I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and that's great. You know, like I love that. That gives me even more permission to really drop into who I am and who I want to be. And I just magnetize everything that I want because I'm in that space. So the people who love me and support me and my work just naturally show up, and we just create together. So I created my own business. It's Mystic Mentorship. It's spiritual guidance, intuitive readings, one-on-one coaching. And coupled with that, I have my own movement practice, which is called the Free Flow. And it's an ecstatic dance meets guided meditation that's really focused on basically using, like I tell people, movement is the medicine because it unlocks your body. Music is the portal because music is such a powerful tool for activating memories, visions, feelings in the body, like you name it, music can activate it. And then the imagination, you know, because we're so locked up conditionally that once we can go back into that like childlike state of play, everything starts to open up for us because we're curious and we're excited and we feel good. So I use music and the imagination and movement as a way to help people unlock their bodies and just like start to feel the vibration they need to in order to realize their potential.
I love that part about it. Well, it just sounds to me, but this is my very biased opinion, of course, that creativity allowed you, like you tapping into your creativity allowed you to find your own personal remix of what, let's call it growth, let's call it healing, finding yourself is. And that is so, so cool.
Yeah, thanks. It's so true. It is like the imagination is the key to everything. If you're not imaginative, you're probably not creating. You know, you might just be doing, but like, is there any purpose? Only each person knows, but in my opinion, like, no.
Yes. And you know, I think a lot, it's very common. All right. You remember those times when I thought I said my dog would do this?
Yeah.
I'm gonna let her out because I'll be right back. Oh my goodness, you are so rude. Oh my god, these the guys are the worst. I swear to God.
I used to have a French bulldog, and so she used to always have something to say. It was funny.
Oh, Frenchies, they're so cute.
Yeah.
Oh man. But yeah, dude, I wonder, like I really am like curious, was dancing and movement always present in your life? Like when do you feel like you made that connection?
Yeah, so from an early age, I always wanted to be a dancer. I watched music videos. I loved their outfits. I liked the way they moved their bodies. It was hot. I didn't identify with it as hot when I was younger, but it was very activating. And I think as a kid, especially as girls, we love to dance around. We're in our dresses, we sing songs, like we're really free in that way. And I was a gymnast for 6 years, and so I performed there. But it was actually through that experience. There was like my coach and a couple of the girls on my team told me that I was the stiffest dancer and the worst dancer out of our whole team, and it crushed me. So for literally, I don't know, 2 decades after that, I didn't dance. I danced in my room by myself, but in public, you would not see me dancing. I'd be kind of like, even at shows, I was the chick that's kind of grooving her head a little bit, but even if I wanted to dance and I felt it in my body, I was too afraid. I didn't want people to see me. I didn't want people to have opinions of me. So I didn't do it. Um, and it wasn't until I was 25 that I really started to give myself permission to do that. And it was through festivals and music scenes. Plant based medicine was amazing for helping me unlock myself in that way. And since then it was just like, oh my gosh, like I'm meant to be doing this, and it's the thing that lights me up and fuels me. And so now it's like I'll never not be dancing. If there's music playing, I'm almost always moving my body to the point where I'm that chick at a festival. It's like I should probably go to sleep, but I just can't stop moving. Like I love it so much.
It's awesome. It's almost like you're just like letting the music flow through you, so it's not even work.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just grooving all the time.
Wow, your story resonates with me so much because I too grew up ashamed of dancing. Or at some point in my life, I just became like deeply ashamed of dancing. But my story is a little bit different because my dad was always like a super aggressive person, and he loved dancing, and he was super aggressive about dancing. Like if there was any ever music, like he was like, look, I'm the best dancer in the world. And then he would kind of like make people, like force people to dance with him, and I always found that like just so violating, because I could tell like people were like, oh, I don't want to mess with you, sir, please don't touch me.
Mm.
And like just like watching that made me like, I'm a very well, I grew up being a very rigid kid just because of my environment. I always felt super betrayed, so I protected myself by being rigid. So I just remember making the decision, I'm never gonna dance so that this doesn't happen to me.
Mm.
And it sounds so ridiculous. I mean, at least to me when I say it, because now when I go out dancing, I mean, even like I had a really important moment in my growth. Last year, I danced the shit out of my cousin's wedding in front of all my family, who were almost like, no, we're not going to dance kind of thing. And it was funny because all of the kids were on the dance floor just going crazy, but the adults, like none of them even got close to touching the floor. So I really felt like that was like a moment of healing generational trauma, but something just as silly as that.
Hmm. That's all it takes. It's just like a little crack in the windshield, is what I tell people. And then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, I like this. Like, what is exploring a little more of that feel like? And that's kind of like what my dance practice is like. You start kind of like at your edge, but the more and more you inch towards relaxation, really is what it is, just allowing yourself to have an experience, the more fun you have because you're less afraid and you realize this actually feels better than trying to resist doing what I want to do.
Yes, we really don't talk about that. How much energy it really drains. It literally resisting things on purpose is literally just draining our life force. And I heard somebody frame it in the way of love. There's this guy called Peter Crone, and he says, so we all want love and we talk about love, but have we been loving? Are we loving? And it's just like, oh my God. Well, no, I go out and drive my car and look around and be like, this asshole, this motherfucker, you know? And it's like, wow, I'm over here preaching for self love and all this stuff. Like, no, I really got to implement this in every area of my life. So, very important to have these loving practices. And I love ecstatic dance as one of those practices because it's basically like being at a party with yourself.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, there's nothing better. You can have a solo party of one if you have more than one person, you know, that's just amplification of that same energy. And it brings you to even higher states potentially.
Yes. So for those who may be listening and are like, okay, WTF is ecstatic dance, could you give us the cliff notes on that?
Yeah, so ecstatic dance, it's there's no choreography, it's all intuitive movement. So, you know, for me in my practices, it's about starting to wake up the body through gentle movement, through stretching. You know, we call those movement meditations also. And it's just really allowing yourself to surrender to the present moment. And the ecstatic is just the feeling that you get, like you're so blissed out through the journey, because typically the music starts kind of low and then it takes you into this like big peak where you've got all this energy and you're just like lit up, like you can feel energy radiating out of your body, it's coming out of all your chakras. And it's that moment where you're being danced as opposed to dancing. You know, it's just flowing through you with such presence that you're blissed out. So ecstatic dances is that. It's just the process really of dropping into the present moment, dropping into your body, surrendering, and just allowing yourself to move freely. And the more you do it, coupled with the music, the more activated you become, the more ecstatic you become. So if anybody's like been to a nightclub or something like that, this is a perfect example. You're not really dancing choreography, but the DJ plays this song and you're just like, woo, this is my jam, right? You feel all those feelings in your body and you're just like in it. You don't know what you're thinking. You're just like lost in the sauce. That's ecstatic. Like that's basically ecstatic dance. It's the same thing.
I love that feeling of being ecstatic. It might be, I mean, I don't know. If when I think about it, I get excited because I know that anytime I'm feeling that, it's like, wow, this is when I know that taking my armor off, like putting, like just letting my mind do its thing, but just like allowing myself to just be fully present. And in that instance with the dancing, like present to what my body wants to do, that really is like those moments where I like, oh, this shit pays off, you know, like this is living. Like, oh,
Yeah.
how beautiful. And
Yeah.
I love something you said in the beginning that you said dancing is your meditation. And good news, everybody, meditation really can be anything that you are, wherever you're able to find yourself just allowing whatever is happening to happen in whatever way it's meant to happen. Like that's literally meditating.
Yep.
Some people can achieve it sitting and clearing their minds, putting a blindfold on, but I love that you share that this is your meditation. When do you think was like the first time when you were like, oh shit, dancing is my meditation?
Mm. I wouldn't have had the awareness that it was my meditation until about 3 years ago now. I would always dance and I knew I would get meditate. And I always was the person who thought, okay, I have to sit, I have to be quiet and like be in stillness. And for me, I'm such a high energy person, which is why I'm practicing it right now, just seated in stillness because it's so hard for me. So up until now. Um, so 2 years ago, it was through this troop, this women's troop in Brisbane that I joined in Australia, that really taught me about embodiment and also this concept of, oh, when I'm dancing, sometimes I get these messages or these downloads, they would call them. And that's when it dawned on me that I was like, oh my gosh, this is my meditation. Because some people, like you say, they can sit and they can really clear their field intentionally that way. I wasn't so much trained in that way. But when I'm moving, hell yeah, I'm clearing so much energy. And that's when all of my messages come to me. I keep a journal beside me when I dance because genius ideas come through or breakthroughs around struggles or issues I'm having. So yeah, I was like, wow, okay, like awesome. Like now I don't have to sit and meditate. This is great. I can just keep doing what I'm doing. And it works. And it does, for me to sit down and meditate is just another way of me leaning into a deeper practice. So, you can take walks around your neighborhood and meditate. You can walk your dog and meditate. You can do the dishes and meditate. There's so many different ways to do it.
Yes, I mean, it really does sound like you're saying that a lot of people might be meditating right now and not even know it. And I would highly recommend that if you're listening right now and you're like, oh shit, yeah, like I kind of get into like an altered state of consciousness when I'm doing the dishes, like don't think that's stupid because it's not. Like be curious, like dive deeper into it. And just, I would recommend if you think that you get in a flow state or whatever when you're doing the dishes, when you're doing whatever you do. Next time you do that and you start feeling that, just kind of tap into it and really pay attention to what that feeling is. Why? So that next time it comes up, you can recognize it. And through recognizing, like, okay, this feels that way when I'm doing the dishes. And then next time when I'm painting, I feel the same way. Then through making those like connections, those discoveries, you find your patterns, and that's the recipe to your own sauce.
Yep, exactly. Just awareness. And then you realize and just like, oh, okay, that gives you then permissions like, I'm going to explore this a little bit more. And that's where all the juiciness is, in my opinion.
Yes, and I highly recommend that anybody listening tries ecstatic dance or an ecstatic dance ceremony, just because being in this safe container that has been created with the ultimate intention for people to feel safe to express. And at least in the experience I had with you, I love the way that you guided the experience, because through you giving those prompts that I would have never thought about, and me just saying, okay, what happens when I, try eating fruit while I'm dancing? And it's like, oh, I didn't think that was going to be anything, but it's literally like the best blueberry I've ever tasted somehow. And I went and like, I literally went to the store and bought more of those blueberries, and I kept eating them. And I'm like, they never fucking tasted that good. And that just blew my motherfucking mind.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it.
Oh,
Yeah, there's different ways that we can activate ourselves, and sensuality, the class that we did together, is for me, it's like one of the easiest ways. We're sensual in nature, like God, the universe literally gave us these five senses to have experiences. So we can see what we like, we can smell what we like, we know what we don't like based on touch. There's so many things. So when you have things around you that activate you or turn you on or inspire you, that's like that's medicine in that. Like, of course, yeah, blueberry's a blueberry, but then you put on the right track and you're in the right mood and you eat a blueberry and it's the best blueberry you've ever had in your whole life. Same with like oranges. I did oranges and I was like, God, this is juicy and it's like so beautiful and I love the way it feels going down my throat. There's like so many ways that you can experience that ecstatic bliss just in everyday things that you do.
and that right there is what we mean by developing a self-love practice. Is just engaging in things like that and being open to, oh, how do I really feel about this? And allowing whatever comes afterward to happen.
Yep, exactly.
So, do you have any other self love practices that, obviously it sounds like dance is your favorite, but anything else that, you maybe one that you started with, or one that just seems like it could be like a really easy one to use, especially if you're new to, finding your way around self love?
Mm. Yeah, one of the first things that I like to have my clients do, and this is because this is what really helped me, and it's something that I still do to this day. And it's like journaling. And I know journaling is, it kind of puts some people off because people don't really like to see their thoughts on paper because it makes it really real, you know, like, oh my God, I feel that way. But a smaller way that they can start is just tuning in every day with like maybe 15 minutes, you know, and I just have them tune into their mind, tune into their body, tune into their spirit. So whether you do it every morning or every evening before you go to bed or both, right? Both is amazing because then you can see how your day is kind of shifted. But it's like, okay, where's my mind at? What's on my mind? What's taking up a lot of my mental capacity? You write a couple cliff notes about it. How does my body feel? Am I sore? Am I tired? Am I on my period? Right? A couple notes about it. And my spirit, like, what's my energetic level been like? A couple notes about it. Over time and consistency, the more you do that, the more you'll start to see patterns emerge. So when you're feeling really sore, it might just be like, oh, my moon's coming, right? My period's coming. Oh, I've kind of just been like really low energy, right? You can start to see and put together all of these signs that are just like, okay, when I feel this way, I can also see how it affects these two other things because it's total body. It's never just mental. Like the mind, the thoughts start the whole process, and then the body registers that, it holds that information. Your energetic levels, you know, depend on how you respond to that, your energy is affected and your auric field's affected. So that's one of the easiest, I think, personally, and quickest things. It's like quick check in. How's my mind? How's my body? How's my spirit? Yeah. And then over time, you can also see what patterns start to develop. So for me, I learned that if I'm having a bad day or if I'm kind of off, typically my my ebb, right? Ebbs and flows. My ebb is about 3 days, 4 days tops. If it's longer than that, I really need to check in and see like what's going on there. There's probably some like shadow work or something deeper that's unresolved. And so I got to learn that. Like, okay, if I'm in a bad day, it's probably going to take me 3 days to recover. Great. You know, it's just a great way to kind of track how you spend your time and how your body is responding to it.
And I think this you just shared such a golden nugget because a lot of people we recommend journaling, but I love the way that you described it, like checking with the three major systems that make you as a human, mind, body, soul. And I love how you point out you'll get this data and then you can read that data. And how do we read data? We look for trends. We look for things that show us like correlation of things and how valuable to have that about yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was honestly one of the best tools that I had. That was like, okay, yeah, because sitting down and journaling can feel like a commitment. And sometimes it is. All of a sudden you sit down and you journal and you're like, wow, I've been journaling for 2 hours. Like I just spent 2 hours doing this. And for people who are busy and productive and got things to do, we don't necessarily want to spend 2 hours on it. So the quick check-ins are awesome. And I think it's just like you're saying, it's data. And so it lets you see where you're spending most of your time, and those are the spots where if they're not supporting you, you got to start making adjustments. But it's like it's a process of building that awareness, which is the first step in self-love and healing and in everything.
Yes, and I will say too that for any hero's journey that you're going to embark on, or any journey period, knowing yourself like before going in, God, such a valuable thing to have. Just
Mm-hmm.
knowing, and again, just checking in baseline, like how are you feeling health wise, physically in your body? Because I mean, if I'm about to jump into a pool full of sharks and I have like all these cuts, probably not the best idea. And if I can like, reschedule this swimming with sharks. Also, if I'm on my period, probably not a good idea. And
Yeah.
speaking about moons, let's talk a little bit about your program, Lunar Magic, because I'm so curious. I love the word magic and I love the word lunar, but I am a Pisces and a Cancer.
You're all about it. Yeah, so yeah, Lunar Magic, it's a 3-month program, and it's based around working with the lunar cycle for healing, for radical self-love, for empowerment. It's really all encompassing. And the reason I use the moon is because it's like nature's cycle, like it happens consistently rain or shine, cosmos, no cosmos, like we always have a moon and a sun. It's always rotating around us. And I got into lunar work because I kept kind of hearing people talk about it. And I was like, I don't know. And then when I went to Australia, there was just a day where I could always see the moon. Whereas in the Pacific Northwest, there's a lot of clouds and stuff. You don't really get to see it all the time. But in Australia, where it's sunny most of the time, I would see it every day. And so I was like, okay, Moon, I'm gonna just like start talking to you. We're just gonna see what happens. Like, no expectations, but I'm here for it. And so I just started talking to it. And just, I don't know, being honest, I guess, just like sharing myself, calling in what I wanted to see. And it was like through that process, I got a deck of cards that day. I opened the cards and I did a little shuffle. And as I'm shuffling, a card flew out of it and it was the moon card. And so I was like, okay, there's something here for me, right? Like, this is a sign. And so I really started to research it. And I personally think that it's such an amazing tool because the moon phases like 28 and a half days. So it's just shy of a month. So, you know, lunar magic sounds like super, super feminine, but it's also amazing for men too, because basically you use it to set intentions, take action towards your intentions, then evaluate what's working, what's not working. Then you let go of what isn't, keep pursuing what is. And it breaks your goals or your healing, whatever it is that you're trying to achieve for yourself within coaching and the transformations that you want, into 30-day periods. And so over a 3-month period, that's basically a season, you have a 90 days that you've been actively every day taking action and evaluating and tuning in to see like, okay, this is how I'm going to achieve these goals. And usually by the 90 days, it's like people are so in a different headspace. They're feeling more confident, they're empowered. And so I love working with the moon for that. I also just, my moon's in Cancer, so I'm very connected in that way. And yeah. And yeah, it's just, it's beautiful. It's a great way to tune in to an already natural cycle that happens regardless and create some intention within it, in goals, in healing, in whatever it is that you want to achieve, in a way that feels, you know, good and helps you feel connected to the earth and something that already exists.
And that right there is such a valuable thing, connecting to the earth and the things that, you know, are literally the universe. Because I feel like as humans in our modern society, it's so easy to, you know, I'm in my apartment, in my, you know, 10-story building, in my giant city, and it can be so disconnecting. And man, I will honestly say that whenever I started thinking about the phases of the moon and how they affect my energy and all of that, and I started paying attention to it, in the beginning, I was like super judgmental and I was like, this is crazy, you know, this is whack as fuck. But the more I paid attention to it and I saw like, oh, wow, this always happens around this time, holy crap, like, you know, that really is a huge reframe. And it's so awesome to me now to be like, oh, it's going to be a full moon. Like, I can kind of, I don't know, it just gives me this real nice sense of I'm probably not the only person going through this right now. And I don't know why that always makes me feel better. But one of the things I would love to talk more about is you mentioned that this program sounds really feminine, but it is also open to men. And that's actually how we met, was at a Brothers of the Moon meeting, which is a men's group. And it's funny because here comes the moon again. Um, but why men's work? Why is men's work important? And how can women support men and men's work?
Oh, that's such a beautiful question. Oh my gosh. You know, women in general and the feminine, I'll just say like the feminine, and obviously this is very heteronormative, but you know, it just applies to whoever identifies. But feminine energy, we've been going through these shifts for quite a while now. And where we're at now in terms of spiritual awakenings and just what's happening with the world in general, men are now like starting that journey, slash have been starting, I think, over the last, you know, couple of years. And as society kind of crumbles and patriarchy is like falling away. It's an amazing opportunity for women to step into our power now, because for so long there was a lot of disempowerment around what it was like to be a woman. And we have this opportunity to step up and with our hearts, from our intuitive wisdom, because we all have been accessing that on such, I think, unparalleled levels, if I'm being honest. Like, the wisdom that comes through us as women, especially through culture and lineage, is just profound. And we get to now hold our men by teaching them and guiding them back into their hearts. The masculine energy is very linear, it's very driven, it's purposeful, it's passionate. And women's energy is passionate too, but we are very emotional. And so, in order to really create balance, for us to show up for our men and guide them back to their hearts is what I think is really going to help all of us start to come into union, because it's no longer going to be just this like patriarchal, okay, think, I gotta do. It's more about less resistance and just moving into being and feeling and honoring our truth. And the thing too is, like, men have gone through they've been shamed just like we've been shamed. And the disconnection that we feel from each other, from our maybe our own just victim mentalities at some point, and our own conditioning as separate sexes of boys and girls, um, really kind of held us apart. There was a lot of, man hating and then women hating and shaming all around. And men have gone through, to some degree, they feel the same emotions that we feel, even if the story and the narrative is different. And so men's work, men's work's important, because I think a lot of men are realizing that they don't know how to identify with their emotions because they were never taught that. And that's just something that's been passed on. Their fathers were likely never taught much about it. And it kind of forces us to go way, way back into our ancestry and into community and tribes to see how they came together as units. So now we have an opportunity to also embrace that mentality and embrace ceremony and unconditional love and support and community in a way that then we get to support each other, but from a very conscious, communicative, heartfelt space.
I fucking love that. And I love how you wrapped it up all in the end, saying that the importance of the two polarities, like whether you identify more with feminine or feminine energies or masculine, like it's important for both to come together. Why? To form tribe again. And I just want to offer to anybody listening that we all have feminine and masculine energies within ourselves. And for me, it has been one of the ways that I've really gotten to learn so much about myself and how to balance myself within myself. So rather than seeing it like I am a woman and, this person is a male, like I am feminine and I am masculine. And what I found is that my masculine energy, I want to work with in a way where it serves as a container for the feminine essence of me, which me being such a creative person and really like creativity being my mission, like I need to just be the vessel for whatever comes through me, through creativity, and just finding the relationship between like my masculine, I would say, ego and like the femininity of my soul has just really been such a healing process. And I highly recommend people to look into, again, just thinking you have both energies within you. How do they manifest themselves to you, whether consciously or unconsciously? Like that's yours to explore and like really own.
Yeah, and it's so true. And I feel really fortunate. Right now I'm in San Marcos La Laguna, I'm in Guatemala, and immediately I found a really beautiful community here. And something we were just talking about the other night is We hosted a little women's gathering here at our place, and we had about 6 women, and it was really beautiful because it's a safe container. We get to express our emotions, so we don't project our emotions, and we get to all be reflections and mirrors of each other. And one of the comments that we had, which we've also talked to our brothers about, is how beautiful the brotherhood is here. And the thing about this space is it's very activating, it's very inspiring, there's lots of energy here, and in that, obviously, so many shadows can come up and so many unconscious, things start to appear. And it's amazing because within this community, we all feel safe and comfortable to hold each other accountable, which is such a big part of this process and of growth and evolution, is having your brothers to hold that container for other brothers of, hey man, like, we're going to help you grow through this, but like, this is not serving you and it's not serving the community. What's that about? They're not afraid. And I love that, because it's like, oh yes, like, thank you. Because so many people, the reason they kind of unconsciously act is because they just don't feel supported, and they kind of have this mentality of just like, oh, fuck it, but not in a good way. They're just like, oh, I don't give a shit what people think, like, it doesn't matter, rah rah rah, when really that's just the ego, because it does matter. We all deeply want to be loved and to be held and supported. And so when we're in situations where we have people lovingly holding us accountable by being kind-hearted and compassionate mirrors for what we're going through, oh my gosh, the healing process is so much easier, because you no longer feel like we have to do it alone.
Woof to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really, you cannot highlight enough the importance and just the value that these like safe containers for us to express ourselves with higher standards. I mean, just so important. And the experiences I've had in those containers, I mean, just so fucking beautiful. So fucking beautiful. And speaking about containers, you hold lots of space for these type of experiences to be had. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm mostly, Instagram is where I do a majority of my work. I just love that platform so much. I love the versatility of it, all the ways that I can show my personality. So I'm on Instagram at Mystic Mentorship, and I'm also on Facebook at Mystic Mentorship. Also, my personal profile, Tiffany Mertens, is public. So people can go in and just follow me through there, and they'll still get similar. I do things a little bit differently on Facebook, but a majority of my energy is directed towards Instagram. I'm on TikTok, but I haven't utilized it to its full capacity. So I'm there, but I'm more active on Instagram than anywhere else.
In Clubhouse, I've seen you
In
host some
Clubhouse,
pretty
yes.
powerful rooms there. Do you have any coming up or scheduled?
Yeah, so I host Mystic Mondays. I haven't the past couple weeks because I've been traveling, but I'll be getting back onto that. So that's a Monday chat. It usually goes for an hour to 2 hours, unless it's just like full pumping, then we keep going. And that's just really an opportunity to talk about spirituality, to talk about mysticism, stepping into the great unknown. Sometimes I'll pull a tarot card just to see like that what theme we're going to cover, and let that kind of be the guide, because the thing I love is everybody's experiences are same but different, and the differences help us all heal, and the similarities do the same, and just kind of, it's nice to just hear we aren't so alone. So I created Mystic Mondays for that. And then Friday evenings I do Sacred Sexuality late night with my partner Jonathan, and that's 9 p.m. Pacific time. And it's just a safe space again to come in and talk about sexuality, talk about how to make our sex more sacred, and also talk about conscious communication. So we talk about Kundalini, we talk about radical love, compersion, all these things that just help create stronger, healthier dynamics, not only within ourselves, but also in how we relate to others. So those are the two that I consistently have. I'm always kind of popping into Clubhouse just to see what everybody else is talking about. I love to be on there and just listen. And also just create, like share my story and offerings as a way to just bring, virtual community, because that's Clubhouse has been amazing for that.
Yeah, I've gotten so much like really great experiences from Clubhouse. Funny because when I first started messing with the app, I was like, this is weird, but there's something that I really love about it. Tiffany,
Yeah, it's
thank you
very
so
opening.
much for being here with us today. And more than anything, thank you for just fucking continuing to double down on yourself and create so much beauty and so much abundance for yourself and fuck girl for others, because I really do. Thank you so much for being on this journey with me, because you just radiate love and wisdom, and for that I am just so grateful.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm so glad that our paths have crossed, and I look forward to learning more through you too. Like, I'm a firm believer in synchronicity, and we're all here for purpose, for our own growth and evolution. So, it's been such a blessing for me to know that you host something and you want to hear more of what I have to say. And yeah, I just look forward to creating and sharing more and just growing beside you, girl.
Yes, likewise. And I can't wait to pop into your next workshop or ecstatic dance or clubhouse room. I know it's gonna be amazing.
Yeah.
I hope you have a beautiful day. I'm sure you will, because you are in Costa Rica and it just looks so amazing there. Soak up the
Guatemala.
sun.
Same,
Oh, I'm
same.
so
Yeah.
sorry.
No, it's
Guatemala.
okay. Similar vibes, honestly.
Yes. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Tiffany.
thanks. Yeah, thanks, you too.
Oh, little birdie singing.
How cute.
I know. That's so beautiful. Have a great day, Tiffany. Thank you so
Thanks, you
much.
too, Mama.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Mindfully Curious podcast.